Derby Wars, racing's biggest contest site, is now even bigger with more than 200 games every day. Check out Survivor, Derby Wars' hottest new game. It's fun, easy to play, and for just $4 you could win $1,000. Just pick a horse to finish first, second, or third and advance to the next race. With daily payouts and games starting every hour, you'll see why fans are racing to play Survivor.
Welcome to another edition of HorseCenter, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the great pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. It's great to be with you doing the show on the Derby Trail. And one day comes and the next day comes and things can change very quickly on the road to Churchill Downs.
The Kentucky Derby Trail is always interesting, but never completely smooth, Matt. We found out about that yesterday. But before we talk about McCracken, let's look back to last Saturday at the fairgrounds. It was Gervin, 8-1 shot, pulling off a bit of an upset in the Risen Star, but I think the son of Tale of Akati looks pretty good.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. I don't think either one of us was particularly surprised that an outsider won that race. I think we both liked Gervin a good bit in there. We both used them in the pick four and helped us hit the all stakes pick four. So we had a good day at the fairgrounds. But we weren't surprised that none of the horses from the Lecomte won the race. And personally, I wasn't surprised that Motown didn't show up particularly well off that long layoff, and the Remsen not coming up that strongly.
Yeah, Gervin was a little bit of an outsider, 8-1. I to tell you the truth, I wasn't completely sold on him until I started looking at the speed figures of his races comparatively to the rest of the field. He only had 2 races, a maiden special weight, and then a minor turf stake. He was competitive in both. He won the maiden, and he just missed in the turf stake. But this was a nice step up. He moved, I thought he took an opening on the rail very nicely, and he won pretty easily. Untrapped, local hero. Guess we'd all ran decently. Motown was obviously a disappointment. Maybe he didn't like the track, but we're seeing those Remsen horses return often and not do as well as we had hoped the following year. So that's becoming a bit of a trend. Gervin is a nice horse, and I think, Matt, what we're talking about mostly today is our Kentucky Derby contenders. We're talking a little bit about our individual top 10s, our consensus top 10, and Gervin is a horse that we both put into our list new this week after the Racing Star.
Yeah, we both put the horse at in the number 9 spot in our top 10s, I think because we both like what we saw. I like the way he drew off coming down the lane and handled everything smartly.
Yeah, and Gervin is another horse who speaks a little bit to horses just not having a lot of races before this time of year, before the Derby. Speaking of that, Matt, there's a big returner coming soon. Mastery is high on both of our lists, and he will be making his first start of the year, or he won't be making his first start of the year until March 11th. Of course, that'll be the San Felipe. But Mastery, I believe you have him at number 2 right now. I have him moved up to number 3, so very high on the list, but we still haven't seen him as a 3-year-old.
Yeah, Brian, and I have to admit that overall, I really don't like these 3-year-olds waiting until this late to make their first starts. We're just seeing it over and over again on the Derby Trail this year, Brian, that these kind of horses are not showing up. So you might say, well, geez, Matt, then why the heck did you put Mastery at number 2? And there's one little factor with Mastery that made me do that. I think his name is Baffert, and I think he's pretty darn good at getting horses ready for the Derby. But, Brian, then again, that was not the case with American Pharaoh and others, but I'm going to give Baffert the benefit of the doubt here with Mastery based on his performance last year. Mastery looked very good. Maybe didn't run in tough fields. Will face a little bit more competition when he returns on March 11th.
Yeah, I think that'll be his toughest test to date. Of course, he did look very good when last seen stretching out for the mile 16th Cash Call Futurity at Los Alamitos. Mastery, a son of Candy Ride. Baffert's been high on this one all along. We heard about Mastery last summer. He's moved along nicely as a 2-year-old up into the progression of the race at Los Al. So he was certainly one of the top 2-year-olds from last year. The Baffert factor is something to think about. Whether we're talking about all his Triple Crown horses of the last 20 years or Derby, Preakness, Belmont horses of the last 20 years, Arrogate was brought along a little slower, but obviously Baffert knows how to get them ready for their first really big assignment. I'm throwing Arrogate in there because he had him ready for the drivers off of not a heck of a lot in the past performances. Matt, we need to talk about McCracken. Unfortunately, we got some bad news yesterday. Ian Wilkes informed the racing world that McCracken has a slight issue in his ankle and will be missing the Tampa Bay Derby. We expected him to be running on the 11th. McCracken, of course, the undefeated son of Go Zapper for Janice Whittam. Just really impressive in all 4 of his starts, first 3 at Churchill Downs, then the Sam F. Davis recently at Tampa Bay Downs. Wilkes says it's not a serious setback and he should have him ready for the Bluegrass, but it did cause me to move McCracken down my list, had him number 2, now he's number 4. It's a worry this time of year.
It is certainly a worry this time of year, Brian. And, when I sent my top 10 into the NTRA on Monday, I had McCracken at number 1. But yes, Brian, it is a big concern for me. Even a mild hiccup along the way. We're so close right now. Wilkes said that now he's going to try and have McCracken ready for the Bluegrass. He doesn't need that many points to get into the Derby gate. A 3rd or even a 4th with his other points that he has should be enough. But there is no margin for error at this point.
Yeah, it's all about having your horse as good as you can get him on the first Saturday of May. 1.25 miles, big crowd, big field. All those things are not easy for these young horses. So you want things to go smoothly and you want to have your horse really ready for that first Saturday in May at Churchill Downs. And now there certainly is a question whether McCracken, if that can be accomplished for McCracken. Still got plenty of time, and if this is just a 1 week thing where he just misses one workout maybe, and then he's right back at it 5 days later, 7 days later, he should be fine. Wilkes, for what it's worth, really did want 3 preps this year before the Derby. He's only going to have 2 now. I still could see McCracken winning the Kentucky Derby. However, it is cause for pause just a little bit with McCracken. I also have cause for pause for my number 1 on my list, Matt, because I just don't know if she's going to run in the Derby. Of course, I'm talking about Unique Bella, the wonderful daughter of Tappet and Unrivaled Belle, who's just dominated her races out in Southern California. She's won 2 graded stakes out there in just over the top impressive fashion. She's going to run this Saturday in the Santa Isabel. And Matt, I think this could be her toughest test to date. I don't expect her to lose by any stretch of the imagination, but Abel Tasman is a very interesting filly, and they're going to hook up in Saturday's Santa Isabel.
Brian, maybe the owners of Unique Belle are playing it cagey right now, and they're going to get another race in against the girls out in California. And with, McCracken got with a hiccup now, and Classic Empire with a hiccup now, and Motown not showing up in his first start. Maybe Mastery doesn't show up in his return. Maybe they're just they're taking the wait and see. And if some of these other top 3-year-old colts don't come up big, maybe that'll be enough for them to change their mind and go in the Derby.
Yeah, Matt, it's interesting to me. This is a different ownership situation than Songbird was last year. Of course, they're both trained by Jerry Hollendorfer, and he's cautious. He's one to say he's not excited to run his fillies against males this early. But I think the Chilean ownership might have something to say. I mean, the Kentucky Derby is the race that really everybody wants to win, and if they have the best 3-year-old in the country, And right now, that is my opinion. Unique Bella is the best 3-year-old in the country, in my opinion. I think it's very hard not to look at the Kentucky Derby, whether your trainer is a little bit more cautious or not. Now, there is the points issue. So if she wins the Santa Isabel in a similar fashion to what she's done in the last two, the Santa Ynez and the Las Virgenes, I think Unique Bella, if I owned her, I would want to run in the Santa Anita Derby, get the points, see. Maybe she gets beat. Maybe the Colts will prove better than her. But the Santa Anita Derby is a race where I think she would be, if not the one to beat, certainly one of the ones to beat. And it would be a good proving ground either way. It would leave the door open for a Kentucky Derby run. And, they could still certainly go to the Kentucky Oaks after the Santa Anita Derby if they think that's the way to go.
Right, assuming that she's going to pick up enough points to get into the Oaks in her next start. She could, and she doesn't have to win the Santa Anita Derby to get enough points to get in against the boys. So she could do both and have points and be qualified for both, and then they can make their decision.
So Matt, we talked about Mastery, who hasn't run yet this year. We've talked about McCracken, who just had a little physical setback early this week. We talked about Unique Bella, who we really don't know if she's going to go to the Kentucky Derby. Quietly, there's a horse who really has had no bumps along the road, and I'm talking about the New Jersey bred out of the Graham Motion barn, and that's Irish Warcry. We're going to see the impressive winner, the undefeated impressive winner of the Holy Bull Stakes again this Saturday in the Fountain of Youth. And I'm really looking forward to the encore at Gulfstream for Irish Warcry.
Yeah, and I think you said that well, Brian. Irish Warcry has had no hiccups along the way. He has gotten better and better with all of his starts. He's trained by Graham Motion, who, of course, won the Derby with Animal Kingdom. Doing everything right. If this horse runs big again in the Fountain of Youth, we could very well have some shakeups in the top tens.
Yeah, well, I have number 2 now after McCracken's injury, and you have him down at number 4. So he's very much near the top of both of our lists right now, Matt. Holy Bull was impressive. He might have been a little green. He wired it, of course, without a ton of pace. So there are some questions moving forward. I think the Fountain of Youth will help answer a few of those questions. But Irish Warcry certainly looks good. Son of Curlin, there's a lot of distance there. You would think he can handle further distance, only get better as he matures. And he doesn't strike me, Matt, I don't know about you, but a horse who will need to wire these races moving forward. I think he can come from a little bit off the pace, and we might see that happen on Saturday.
Yeah, and certainly in training, I'm sure Graham Motion must be working on that, relaxing and coming off the pace in morning schooling.
All right, Matt, and while Irish Warcry has had a smooth trail so far to the Kentucky Derby, we're going to talk about one more horse in our consensus top 5 who also has not had the smoothest of trails. And I'm talking about Classic Empire. Wonderful 2-year-old champion of last year, the son of Pioneer of the Nile, who, by the way, is the sire of our only Triple Crown winner of the last 38 years or so, American Pharaoh. Classic Empire looked like the real deal to me until a lot of people winning the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at Santa Anita. But then he acted up before the Holy Bull. He was a well-beaten third. They found a hoof abscess after the race. We don't know how long that's going to be nagging along. Tampa Bay Derby certainly is on the plate for Classic Empire, but only if he's 100% by then. I like this horse. I think if he's 100%, he's got a big shot, but questions abound.
Yep, absolutely. Questions abound. And we were talking about being concerned about McCracken, and I'm just as concerned with Classic Empire because the hoof abscess has been lingering a little bit longer than I think the Cassie crew was hoping. He's still been going out to the track, so it's not like he's been completely stuck in his stall. But as every day goes by, as we get closer and closer, and we're a mere 9 weeks almost away from the Derby, I get more and more concerned about the horses who, not long ago, Brian, were our top 2 in McCracken and Classic Empire.
Yeah, maybe he has a slight advantage, and his little hiccup came a little bit earlier than McCracken, but who's to know? I think it'll be a very good sign if he's ready to run in about a week and a half. That's March 11th in the Tampa Bay Derby. Yes. All right, Matt, those are our top five, our consensus top five for our top 10 lists. I know you have Ella Reeb, number 5 on your list. I have him down at 10. A little worried about the competition and the distance on him, but you like Ella Reeb quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm a little less worried about those things, and I'm a little bit more impressed with the way Ella Reeb has been doing things since he broke his maiden, win after win by big margins with good speed figures. And he's made that transition that you mentioned before with Irish War Cry. He's made that transition from a horse that likes to run on the lead to a horse that can break from the gate alertly, find a nice stalking position, relax, and then make a big move coming down the stretch. And I know there's everybody has a right to be knocking Ella Reeb for the wins coming on the New York Trail, but the way he's been winning, drawing off and doing everything right, that really impresses me. So I look for him to win again in the Gotham and move on from there.
Another horse I think we should talk about, and if you look at speed figures, if you're really into speed figures, is One Liner. I noticed One Liner is number 7 on your list. I'm a little bit more hesitant, even though I do have him at number 8 on my list, and that's just from the impressiveness of his Southwest Stakes win. One Liner is the son of Into Mischief for Todd Pletcher. Really, really big performance at Oaklawn Park a week ago Monday.
Yeah, in so many ways, it was a big performance. It was a big performance visually, the way he ran the race and sat behind the leaders, relaxed a little bit. And when Johnny V asked him to run, he got competitive and drew off down the lane. And like you said, Brian, this was for another lightly raced horse. Only 2 races, had never gone more than 6 furlongs. So was asked to do so many things, ship out to Oaklawn Park that he had never done, but handled them all smartly and looked very impressive. Earned a really nice speed figure. Rider Johnny V said, still a little green. Seems to be a theme in all of these lightly raced horses that we're talking about, Brian.
Yeah, lightly raced for Todd Pletcher. I don't see a lot of distance pedigree on either side. Into Mischief, of course, is a really good sire, but I worry about distance breeding. So I'm going to keep him down lower on the list. Pletcher said he's only going to run one more time before the Derby, and we've seen that play out a lot, usually not to the greatest success at Churchill Downs. So talented horse, but I'm a little hesitant with him. Now, a couple other talented horses came out of the Sham Stakes, and it was a wet track, but it was a ding-dong stretch run between Gormley, who you have in your top 10, American Anthem, who I have in my top 10. I like American Anthem just a little bit better on potential. Son of Bodemeister was more lightly raced. He'll also be pointing for the Rebel. Actually, he'll be pointing for the Rebel Stakes on the 18th of March. I like American Anthem a lot. Not that I don't like Gormley, but if I had to pick between the two, I like American Anthem just a little bit better.
Yeah, Brian, like you said, you're liking American Anthem a little bit more on potential. I'm liking Gormley a little bit more based on actual performance. As we all know, Gormley is trained by John Sheriffs of most recently of Zenyatta fame. But of course, if we think back a little bit longer, John Sheriffs won the Derby on Giacomo. He knows how to be patient with horses, and he knows how to win the big races. So I liked what I saw from Gormley's comeback as a 3-year-old.
Yeah, that was a very good prep race. We'll see Gormley as well in either that Rebel or the San Felipe. Sheriffs has 2 good Derby contenders, the other being Royal Mo. He's going to keep them separated. We just don't know which will go to which. Royal Mo is a big beast of a horseman, really physical presence. He also looked good in beating probably a weak field, I would I wouldn't hesitate to call the Robert B. Lewis a little bit weak, but Royal Mo could be a horse who just improves leaps and bounds in the coming weeks.
Yeah, as you said, he is a big horse, and it was a big, powerful, front-running performance for that son of Uncle Mo.
All right, Matt, we already talked about Gervin, who we both have on the list. I have Gunavera on my list. I noticed that you don't. And I think Gunavera, the stretch-running son of Dialed In, has already proven a lot, probably more maybe than anybody on this list as far as just number of good races. I liked his Fountain of Youth quite a bit. He had a little bit of trouble. He didn't have much pace. He still was clearly second best. I think Gunavera for trainer Antonio Sano is a horse to watch.
Yep, and like you said, Brian, and then going back to his very, very impressive win in the Delta Jackpot and a good run in the Fountain of Youth. Gunavera was another one of 2, 3, 4 horses that were, for me, just sitting right below the top 10, and I could have easily put him in mine.
Yeah, Matt, it's almost hard to limit this down to 10 horses for our top 10s. We didn't mention really good horses, really horses full of potential like Iliad or Taprit, Battalion Runner, the Japanese horse, Epicaris, and we didn't even mention one of the better 2-year-olds of last year from the Chad Brown stable, Practical Joke. Now, Practical Joke will be one of the headliners in the biggest prep this week. That's the Fountain of Youth on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Irish War Cry, Gunavera are going to be there again. Beasley, 3 Rules at Speed, but maybe the most interesting party crasher to the Irish War Cry Gunavera rematch is Practical Joke.
Yep, Practical Joke showed an awful lot of ability as a 2-year-old, and he, of course, is trained by Chad Brown, and Chad Brown is awfully good at getting the horses ready off of long layoffs to run almost at 100%. Of course, he does not need to win this race, pick up some more Derby points, and get another prep race in, and I've liked what I've seen from Practical Joke.
I expect him to run a good race, a mile 16th at Gulfstream Park in his return, like you said, for Chad Brown. Another son of Into Mischief. I don't like him moving forward as much as a 1.25 mile horse. So that's maybe he runs better in the Fountain of Youth than the Derby for me, even though this is his return race. Just personal preference, but obviously he's got a lot of class and he's in good hands there. Same day, Matt, over in Aqueduct. I think you'll be there for the Gotham. We already talked quite a bit about El Arib. He'll be the big favorite in the Gotham, but there's some interesting horses in there. J Boy's Echo was a good performer behind him last time. But I think So Conflated from the West Coast for Doug O'Neill and maybe Action Every Day from Tampa Bay for Todd Pletcher add a little bit of spice to this Gotham.
Yeah, Brian, So Conflated is an interesting one from the Doug O'Neill barn. He was entered in the Risen Star and drew the far outside post, and O'Neill decided he didn't want to put his horse at that difficult spot and scratched out, and at the time said he was going to go to the Gotham instead. He's a horse that won at Golden Gate Fields, the California Derby, on the artificial surface. And I think they're taking a shot with this. This is the Connections that has won the Kentucky Derby twice. O'Neill, Redham, Mario Gutierrez. They're going to take a shot on the dirt, see if they can pick up some points and get into the Derby field. And quite frankly, Brian, I think the Gotham is going to be an easier spot to do that than the Risen Star turned out to be. You mentioned Action Every Day, another one of those promising Pletcher horses with 2 wins. This one, both came at Tampa Bay, both very impressive. But the difference with this one, Brian, is that he's got a distance of ground. First time 7 furlongs, second time 2 turns, 1 mile and 40 yards for St. Elias Stables and our friend Vinny Viola.
Yeah, certainly Action Every Day is interesting. He undefeated in 2 starts. I think he would have to move forward to compete with El Arib here in the Gotham. I'm not sure that this is one of Pletcher's best of his armada of horses. So Conflated is very interesting to me. He closed like a rocket in the last 100 yards of the California Derby to get that win. That was on a synthetic surface. He does have good dirt form before that, though. So, yeah, So Conflated is a horse I think could quickly jump up here. But I think everybody's going to have a tough task in trying to beat El Arib. Matt, we talked a little bit about some future races too. Let's mention that the Tampa Bay Derby again was scheduled for March 11. We're going to lose McCracken out of there, but still looking forward to Classic Empire. Hopefully, Taprit off his good Sam F. Davis finish especially. Looks like an interesting horse in there. The $1.2 million yearling purchase, Taprit. San Felipe is the same day, March 11th. Return of Mastery is big, but he's got Iliad. He's got one of the two Sheriff's horses in Gormley or Royal Mo. That's an interesting race. And then finally, the Rebel, 1 week after that, the 18th, where we'll see American Anthem, who I'm pretty high on, as well as the other Sheriff's horse, Royal Mo or Gormley, whichever one doesn't go in the San Felipe. We also should have Petrov, who ran a good second last time in the Rebel. Any of those races are you especially excited to see?
Like you said, I am really interested to see Mastery's return and see how that plays out in terms of the top Derby contenders, and very quickly we'll start getting towards the end of those 50-point races and head into the really big 100-point races, where the winner of those races is usually a horse that wins the Kentucky Derby.
Often they are, sometimes they're not. We will have to wait and see, but we're having fun doing it. It's 9.5 weeks to the Kentucky Derby, folks. As always, I want to thank our sponsor, the best contest site out there, Derby Wars. And I also want to thank you for watching every week, folks. You come up to Matt and I a lot at the racetrack or even other places and tell us that you enjoy the show. We love it. We love doing this show. Thank you for watching every week. Matt, I know you want to have a special thank you as well.
And as always, I want to thank our producer, Brett Workman, who sometimes has a tough job, but always puts out a great show.
Yeah, there's some technical difficulties this week, Matt. So thank you. A special thank you to Brett for all his hard work this week. Folks, this was a Kentucky Derby Contenders show on HorseCenter. I hope you enjoyed it. Matt and I will be back next week to talk more about the Kentucky Derby Trail. We'll see you then.